Okay, we're live. Hi, Diana. How are you?
Great, thanks. How are you?
Fine, thank you. And thank you for giving us this interview and this moment to get into your home and get to talk to you for your book, Criar humanos en el entorno digital, published by HarperCollins, Mexico.
So exciting.
So, we're gonna talk. It's a big issue. It's a big issue right now to talk about how children are being taught in a digital world and also living right now in a never be seen before crisis. But
Right.
let's start talking mainly on how slowly we have been being dragged to the digital world, not knowing how, not knowing properly the rules, not knowing actually anything.
Yeah.
So let's start there.
Well, I don't know that I think it was slow until about 3 months ago, and now it's really, really fast because everyone's online all the time for everything. So the world has changed so fast, and it's a global issue. So I can't tell you how thrilled I am that my book's available in Spanish. It means a lot to me, and I think it just underscores that we're in this all together. Our kids here in the United States are dealing with the same thing your children are in Mexico and elsewhere in the world. We're in a new playing a new game now where we're all relying on digital tools to connect with our friends, our family, to do work and to do schoolwork. So we have got to learn how to use our tools well.
Exactly. I think everybody has been aware of this social media posting that the parents being dragged to crazy town trying to work and do the home chores and try to school children. So I,
Yeah.
I hope your book can be serve of a guidance to those parents that we now have more stress than ever, and probably focusing on learning and teaching, it will be like an extra task that we have to get better tools to do it. No?
Right, right. So that was really the purpose of the book because we also offer curriculum for schools, but I know it's impossible to get it into every school. And so what I tried to do is include a bunch of our activities and lessons in the book so parents can do them with their children at home. And it really helps because it just opens a dialogue between the parent and child to talk about things that kids are dealing with every single day and that maybe parents don't know. And it opens that door so they can talk about these things together.
So tell us, for the people who haven't read your book, you mentioned these tools, and what else should people, like, what kind of parent can get your book with, like children are really small, and then
Right.
what ages or what kind of
Okay. Yeah, so I really tried to gear it for parents with children of all ages. I compare raising a digital child today like building a house. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a long project and it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. And so I really start with the very smallest of children. I call that laying the foundation of the house. But the first third of the book is really talking about kids maybe from birth to age 7. I think those are the most critical years to lay the social and emotional skills that kids will need to be good humans online and off. So I talk a lot about brain development in the beginning of the book. And then the middle of the book is really the structure of your house, like the knowledge that kids need in order to withstand the digital world. And so I break that down into 4 areas for parents, and it's areas that I hear parents concerned about. Screen time, how much time our kids are spending with screens,
that's a big
their
issue.
digital reputations, what they're posting online, their relationships, which is social media, who they're connecting with, and then finally maintaining privacy online. And then the book finishes with kind of a hopeful guidelines of what you can do as a parent to get your kid out there and doing really wonderful things online.
And I think an important issue you talk about in your book is about the civism a little bit. No, so tell us about how it works and how can it improve our lives.
Well, Cyber Civics is our middle school program that's taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. It's taught not only here in the United States, but we have a couple schools in Mexico that offer it and 7 other countries. But basically what it does, it brings the lessons into the classroom so kids together can start talking about their digital world. So it covers digital citizenship, information literacy, media literacy, but everything a kid needs to know to be really digitally literate. And it's hard for me to really explain that to you in just a few moments because there's so many parts to it. And I guess the best way to tell you about it is that when a parent thinks about that, they immediately think about, oh, the online harms, cyberbullying, all the scary stuff. But when you think about digital literacy, like our world right now is filled with so much misinformation and fake news and just ridiculous stuff on social media that people share. And that's a literacy skill. Like people need to understand how to look at something online and decide if it's true or not true. And what do you do if you see something that you don't believe, and how do you investigate that? So that really is where we take the kids to, is like the whole spectrum of the skills they need to be wonderful online.
And I guess, I mean, it sounds maybe stupid to say it, but probably as much as you behave on the real world is as much as you behave obviously online. I mean, it's not a
Totally.
brainer.
Yeah. I mean, it was really intentional, the name of the book, Raising Humans in a Digital World, because we want our kids to be good humans, whether they're online, offline, or somewhere in between, and it's all the same to kids. They don't see a difference. Like their world is both.
Yeah, and maybe that's the main issue on telling us parents. I mean, we grew without internet, no? So for us, maybe the book is more enlightening because of that, because that's the bridge of understanding. Guys, I mean, we grew up without internet, but these little kids, I mean, they don't know the difference in many ways, no?
No, and I see that a lot with kids like the 12 and 13-year age. I often ask the kids to go on a digital media, I call it a vacation, to try going 24 hours without using any digital media or screens at all. And for many of those kids, it's the first time in their life they've ever done that. Think about that. Like they don't know a day without screens in their lives. So they come back to school and are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I baked a cake. I played with my little sister. I mean, it opens up a whole different world for them. And it really reminds me as an adult, as these kids do not know any other world.
No, and it's a bit scary because, I mean, I think we have so much potential in the digital world, but at the same time, keeping the balance between not losing the human qualities of just having nothing to do at all, and just like as we did, and just like thinking like imagining stuff and not knowing how to do that.
Out. I know.
Yeah, calling your grandmother, hey grandma, how can I do this? And and getting in contact with people. So I guess, I mean, that balance is vital.
That's the one bright side I hope that will come out of this whole COVID thing, is I think because kids are home and they're really missing their friends and face-to-face connection, I think, and I hope that they'll come out of this thing saying, the screens aren't all that great. I really love the human touch. And so I'm really hopeful that we'll come out of this really appreciating the face-to-face communication that we're missing right now.
Yeah, I think it will. And also, well, just changing a little bit our talk. How would you, for example, we're talking a lot about parents, but about the teachers. So how can they also, and they have to learn another way to connect with their students?
Yeah, it's been a crazy time for teachers. We talk to a lot of different teachers with the schools we work with. And for many of them, it's having to learn overnight how to use a lot of digital tools that they never knew how to use before. And I really give credit to teachers for how fast they came up to speed in finding different ways to get lessons to their students. So, just like I think kids will change after this is over, I think a lot of teachers and adults will change too. I think I've seen like a lot of teachers that in the past were kind of anti-technology or averse to technology, are saying, this is kind of cool. This is a wonderful way to reach children, and it reaches children in a different manner. So I really think that it's kind of opening the door for them to see the positive uses of technology.
Exactly. But probably there must be every now and then an evaluation of seeing what we're teaching our students, what they did better, and what did they improve, and what it didn't go properly, and we're not there yet. We don't have the proper tools to excel on what they're missing.
Yeah, and we're all figuring it out together right now. So it's
Yeah.
a grand
Okay.
experiment.
I know. As I was reading a book, it's like this. I mean, we're still experimenting.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still learning. Like, yeah, we can. I mean, so many people haven't bought anything online, for example, yet until now.
Right, right.
As you said, like the last 3 months is like everybody getting
Yeah. And I
like.
know just as a teacher, because I still teach children myself on using Zoom, and I'm
Mhm.
pretty technologically savvy, but I've had to learn so much and how to use the breakout rooms or how to get kids to not be silly when they're talking and teaching them what the proper etiquette is when you use video conferencing. I mean, all of that, we never thought that we'd have to learn those skills or teach those skills. It's all
Yeah,
brand new.
yeah. It's really weird. And I have a funny question. In 19th century, many people were convinced that women and children shouldn't read novels. So the reason for this attitude was precise. They could not distinguish between fiction and reality. So therefore, it was better that they wouldn't read them at all. No, so something similar is happening to us today in the digital world. Do you think? Because as we were saying, it's like for them, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up that analogy, because that's actually the very first lesson that we do in cyber civics, and I often do it with adults too. But what we do is we, have the children become what's called detectives, like their tech is in the middle word,
Uh,
detectives, and
and
they look at technology, different things introduced throughout history, the telephone, the writing instrument, all of those things. Like at first, some people thought they were wonderful. Some people thought, oh, it's going to ruin civilization for different reasons, like the example you just brought up. And we do that because we want kids to see that oftentimes when new things are introduced to society, people kind of freak out. And there's many people who think the worst is going to happen. And the long and short of it is eventually we adapt to our tools and make them work for us. So
exactly.
and the example you brought up is a perfect example. I mean, we did okay with novels. We're still like able to discern fact from fiction as females.
Exactly.
But I think it's like that for anything new that humans are a little bit like, oh, I don't know about that. And then we figure out a way to live with these new things and adapt them to make our lives better.
What do you think is the biggest problem or the biggest issue when you're teaching? For example, the other day I talked to another 15-year-old neighbor, and she I said, "Are you studying? How is it going?" And she said, "I don't know why, but I'm not learning as much." So I just got it, and I said, "Why?" I said, "I can't explain." And she couldn't even grasp, and I don't know how. Maybe she misses the human interaction face to face, or what do you think is the main issue that the children will face now in adapting, and how can they I don't know, reevaluate, like, you know what, this is not working for me.
Yeah. You bring up a good point because, for some kids, online is really wonderful. For shy children that maybe have trouble speaking up in class, being able to do their work online has been great. For other kids, they don't learn this way. They have to be with a person explaining it or have something in their hands that they can touch. So it's really depends on the child. And I think, again, it points to the fact that we're all different, and maybe going forward, it should be a combination of, for some kids in the classroom, for some kids, more stuff online,
Mhm.
because, people learn differently.
So probably a main issue would be just to tell them, the parents, teachers, and children, that it's okay if you need like a proper package made for you, like,
Yeah.
and just, I mean, go forward and say, I'm not gonna, like, we don't have, as you said, we're not made the same way, so there are
Right.
many, we have to still make it accordingly to each child.
Yeah, and that's a thing that I've learned is you can, as a teacher, and this is how cyber civics is delivered to teachers via technology, but they download a piece of paper that has instructions so they can do it live with people, So it's not delivered to the children on the screen. And I
Mhm.
think that's what we forget right now, even though we're home, we can deliver like PDFs, instructions to parents that they can download and then do it with their kid in real life.
Mm.
So you know, it's not like everything has to be with a screen. Remember, it can be a hybrid of both.
Mhm. And although political correctness could be widely accepted on social networks, can we think that it could also become a danger? Because I mean, what I mean is the political correctness in every way, no? And now I don't know if there are more barriers. I mean, let me rephrase. When we're in social media, and I think probably we're aligned with different kinds of instructions, or as you say, the etiquette, no? How to
Yes.
relate.
Yes.
How does the social network have influenced the interactions when you're teaching and so on?
Yeah. The
How
reason
has
I
it
laughed
affected?
at first because you said political correctness, and I'm thinking in the United States right now, we do not have a lot of political correctness happening in social media. So
Exactly. I was thinking of the bombarding, the constant bombarding, yeah, and how can you just like no, focus here.
yeah. So yeah, let's put that aside for a minute. But no, I see what you're saying, and I think with kids specifically, the thing that's confusing about social media is they forget that, especially when they're writing things to each other, they forget that they can't read facial expressions or social cues, so they'll oftentimes make mistakes. And a lot of times parents think, oh, they're cyberbullying or they're being mean, but you know, for kids, a lot of times it's simple mistakes because they just don't have, especially the young ones, they haven't developed all those social and emotional skills to read other people's feelings, you know? So there's a lot that we miss on social media. But given that, I think, you know, kids, teenagers, they're doing pretty good given the very minimal instructions that we've given them. I think in a lot of cases, you'll see teens being nicer to each other than maybe adults are sometimes. In my mind, a lot of the problems that I see on social media are more in relation to using the platforms to pass around information that's incorrect or just flat out wrong, you know? And so I think that's a big problem we have in society right now.
So how long have you been teaching?
Well, gosh, when my own children were like in middle school, I went back and got a master's in media psychology. That was about 10 years ago. And
Okay.
then right when I finished, my daughter's school had their first cyberbullying incident. And the administrator said, gosh, can you help me? And so that's when we started doing these lessons in the classroom. So it's been about 10 years.
So I wanted to what your answer to relate to the next question. You say they're doing pretty well with little instructions. So for the last 10 years or so that you've been working together with children, do you think we have managed a little bit better the dangers that are in the internet for children?
Every year, I think we're getting better. I think kids are getting better. I think adults are getting worse. I do. I hate to say that. And I think
Okay.
I'm hopeful that when this generation raises their own children, they'll do it a little differently. And I say that because of some examples where I hear from the children that their parents will post embarrassing pictures without asking their permission. And it's like, you know, come on. That's the kind of stuff that's so hard for a preteen or a teenager. It's so embarrassed.
I know.
So I think kids are getting better understanding that between each other, and we need to bring the adults along as well.
So we need more classes, like no, like one-on-one. Don't embarrass your teenager.
Yeah, don't embarrass your teen. Feel sorry for them. I mean, I'm just as bad. My kids will do not allow me to ever post them on social media, and if I do, I hear about it.
Mhm. Yeah, but it's like, as we were saying, I mean, you're raising humans to, I mean, you mean not only the small ones, like also us, no? It's
Yeah.
like, and probably talk about the guidance, yeah, you can give to the people who use the digital world would be to talk about that. Like
Yeah.
like when you go out and now we don't put the cell phones on the table, no, because we know it's like
Right. And you
it's
know, you made me think of something as we're having this conversation. With the book, there's a discussion guide that's free on our website.
Yes.
And so what we try to tell schools or parents or anyone that's going to read it, maybe do it in a book group, especially if you're raising children together the same age. And the chapters are really short. Read a chapter together, and then they can use our discussion guide. And as we're talking, I'm thinking I need to have that translated and have it in Spanish would be really easy to do. So I'm going to put that on my list of things to do.
Yeah, because the book, I mean, gives you the sense of this is not a closed matter. It's
Right.
like an issue that the different guidelines, and it's gonna keep changing because
Right.
even the technology keeps changing, obviously. So probably next time we were talking with, I don't know, the Google lenses, and, you know.
Yeah. You know, and that's true. Technology changes, but people don't change, you know, and really what I try to address in my book is just the basic values that we want to raise children with and
Mhm.
how to apply that to different technologies, no matter if it's today's Twitter or whatever, tomorrow, who knows what, but that we want to raise kids that are able to have the skills they need to use any of this stuff well.
That's true. Yeah. And I just wanted to ask you again a little bit about the COVID-19, because this is not gonna end on October or December. No, this is probably shift I mean, everything, education and
Yeah.
retail and everything. So what can we do?
Well, I can't answer the really big questions,
No.
but I can say that we have to prepare our kids to use technology well and to be aware of potential dangers, especially with our littlest of children. And the other thing that I'm concerned about is the images that kids are seeing online, because there's so much stuff happening in the world and it's super scary. And what I tell parents often is the social media apps that kids use, like Snapchat and TikTok and all that, they're delivering these images and this news to kids. And a
Mhm.
lot of times kids will be alone in their bedrooms seeing this stuff, and it's really scary and frightening for them and confusing.
Mhm.
So I think that we have to be super aware of the anxiety level of children in the next few months and just, you know, really talk to them about what they're seeing on their screens. And as much as you can with your younger ones, be sure they're not looking at this stuff alone.
I don't remember if you mentioned in the book. Well, probably in the part you say that the time that we're spending with the computers and so on screen time, to meditate, for also to, I mean, for children to,
Yeah.
alongside when you're learning, just like to create a space for them to meditate and just like not depend on what we're feeding them, like create their moment, because as you said, the anxiety and everything, that it's the energy also, they're really sensitive more now than ever.
And I have a whole chapter on that. You know, our screen time chapter is all about, you know, here's how much time kids are sitting on screen. Here's what you can do to try to balance that with real life. And here's what's happening in their brain that makes it impossible for them to walk away from their phones unless you help them.
Mhm.
All of that stuff is so important for parents to understand so that they can go in there and help their children make change.
And yeah, because you could also add to these troubles, for example, all the information that Google and all of the internet masters are collecting, all the data, you know?
There's a whole chapter on that too.
Exactly. We talked to
Privacy.
Brittany Kaiser, that she has this book also with HarperCollins.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy how I mean, the little ones don't know the fight there's out there, you know, to stop, like, stop gathering our information.
Yeah.
So,
And you know what, where I think the trouble is with that with kids, other than the fact you really don't want your children's information taken and sold, right?
mhm,
But the fact that, you know, from a very early age, Google and whoever takes their information and decides what they like and gives them back just what they think the kid's going to like. And that's really, you know, that puts them in this filter bubble at such a young age.
mhm.
And I think that's such a disastrous thing for society, because we want to raise citizens, humans that can think about lots of different ideas and have different viewpoints and
Yeah.
not be stuck in their box, which we're seeing happening around society right now. So that
Do you
whole issue
think,
is a big one.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Probably that's the biggest issue if you underlined everything, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many big issues. It's hard to say one is the biggest, but
But
it is a big one right now. Yeah,
yeah.
and I think you know, like I said earlier, parents are so fixated on the cyberbullying and the predators, they never get to that other end of
Mm,
all the other stuff that they need to really be thinking about when their kids are using devices.
of course, yes. And I think it's gonna promote in a way your book in a good way, but many uncomfortable talks
Yeah.
at the beginning. And I mean, it has, you have to have that, no?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise you don't know. Yeah, you think the enemy is outside or inside or, or
The little guys.
exactly.
But
But
they're really great conversations to have. And I love having them with kids because kids are so excited about technology that it's something they want to talk about. They're often really excited to share what they're doing or what they're learning or to show you something. And that's sort of how I end the book is with parents say, look at, try to suspend your judgment and just be open and curious and have them show you what it is they're so excited about.
yes,
And that's how we all learn.
that's really, yeah. I mean, yeah, because they probably they're used to technology. For them it's like it's almost their thing. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, and they're, if you have limits and so on, but it's like, yeah, I'm good at it, so they're also like, that's why they light up, no?
Yeah, and if you come to a child like with a little bit of respect saying, "Wow, you are good at this. Show me what I don't know." And
Mhm.
that opens the door to have these conversations.
Great. So thank you. I can't believe it's already
I
half an
know.
hour. We can talk even
I'm
more.
just happy we didn't do it in Spanish because I'd still be answering question number 1.
Well, I mean, no, I probably, I mean, we can have another talk when our bookstores are open again, and we can do at least one in Spanish, so to make you practice.
Yes, I need my practice.
So thank you so much,
You're so
Diana.
welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And you stay well.
Thank you, you too, and your family.
You too.
So we'll see each other really soon. And to our readers, to your proper new readers and your students, are really glad to have you, and that people can buy your book in Gandhi.com, and obviously in physical when the stores are open.
Great. Well,
So
muchas gracias.
ay, gracias a ti. Chao.
Bye
Hasta
bye.